Hello and welcome to Schematic Play and the Early Years Environment. I'm Lucy Jones and I'm currently the nursery teacher in a large nursery called St Andrews in Newport. The nursery is a very exciting place to work, very busy, lots and lots of children. We have the capacity to take 80 children, which would mean a 40-place nursery in the morning and again another 40 children in the afternoon. To give you a bit of an idea of how it works in our nursery, we have 4 members of staff, myself and 3 teaching assistants. Very good members of staff, all bring something different to the nursery. We have some that are really creative, some that are over the top nurturing, some that are super duper organised, a bit of a mixed bag which really works for our nursery to make it the very exciting place it is. This has led us onto thinking a bit deeper into children's learning and how we could be observing the children and moving their learning forward. So we'd like to share with you today our journey of schematic play, and we'd like to support you as other settings in whatever journey you are on. You know, you may have never heard of schematic play until today, or it could be something that you're already thinking about in your setting, and we can just possibly tweak that little bit today to make you think even deeper into their learning and improve your setting and your environment that little bit more. So a nice hour or so now of thinking about schematic play. So during this course, the course objective is to begin to identify schematic play in an early years environment, to learn how to enhance an early years environment to support schematic play. So I will be doing another brief introduction. We will be looking in detail about each schema. Some may be really obvious in your setting. The minute you pop back into your setting, you will be, wow, I've never noticed this child is repeating this activity all day, every day. It will be a bit of an eye-opener for some. Others, you may find that you've learned about a new schema that you've really not thought about too much, and actually it's making you rethink how you could plan something for your children. We will be looking a little bit about how you can observe the schematic play, how you can note it, how you can maybe discuss with your practitioners in your setting, and really think a bit deeper into their type of play. We will have a video of the children in the setting for you to watch. We've also got a short clip of the nursery. Usually these type of things happen, these type of courses happen within the setting, and you do get to have a little visit around the nursery, and that seems to be something everyone likes to be doing, is having a little look around the nursery, look at ideas, magpieing ideas. So we've done a bit of a video, a whistle-stop tour of the nursery for you as well. And then we're going to look at a play-based environment, how play should be the centre of your nursery, and how your resources really do impact on the children and how they can develop. And then we're going to discuss how to capture that moment. What would be the easiest way in your setting to capture that moment? Why are you capturing it? And what are you going to do about it? So just a few things to think about on your observation journey as a setting today. During this session, you may like to make some notes. Here's an example of one of my team who made some notes when listening to some training about schemas. You know, these are lovely little notes here just to jot a few things down. What's standing out? What things you need to remember? It's just handy to have some little reminders for you and your team. Okay, so just a little idea. I think lots of people now are just making notes. You know, there's lots of webinars and things just to listen to, and it does. Sometimes you can sort of switch off and wonder, oh, what they're saying now. Oh, I missed that bit, missed this bit, because it is hard to listen to the same voice, and you know, I get sick of hearing my own voice when I'm talking, so I don't know what you're going to think listening to me for a long time. But writing notes, you know, a couple of different colours and things always keeps me entertained and thinking. And then you're also revising the key points, the things that matter throughout the session. So just an idea. Obviously, lots of you do this already, but if you're new to this type of thing, keeping some notes is handy. So during this presentation, you will see lots of photographs as we go through. I've tried to take photographs in my setting, my nursery. We are very lucky to have lots and lots of lovely resources that don't all go out at the same time. You know, we do strategically place resources as and when we feel necessary. And if we remember, then we take a lovely photograph to remind us of some good practice that we may have thought worked well, little reminders, and we like to share them with the parents. We share ideas on Twitter. So you will see lots of photographs as you go through, and I may explain what the photographs are. So this photograph here is of loose parts. It was around like the dark, the stars, the darkness, when the dark starts coming in, and the children talk about the dark nights a little bit. So we thought we'd home in and then talk about the shiny things. And the children just open-ended, they can play, mark, make, play with the loose parts, they transport them around the nursery, bring them back, cover things in boxes. So again, it's just thinking open-ended, but it sort of did link to when it started to go dark a little bit, but this could be used at any time of the year. So the introduction, what are schemas? Okay, we're having a little think. Some people already know what schemas are. You know, some people this may be the first experience that you're listening to now about schemas, and it will open up lots of questions, and you may think about the children in your setting during this. You may think about your own children if you have children at home. My experience with schemas was I was lucky enough to join a conference about 6 years ago now, where I listened to a guest speaker talk about schemas, and I really hadn't heard about them before, and oh my word, it opened my eyes to a new way of thinking about play, about learning, about unpicking what children are actually doing and how meaningful it is for those children. I related it straight away to my own son, who has got a huge enclosure schema, and I've shared my information about schemas with grandparents and family members, and they always talk to me about his schema and how he loves to wrap himself in blankets, how you give him a box and he'll sit in a box and watch a film in a box. He's got bunk beds where he likes to sleep underneath the bunk bed. Any talk about camping or making dens, his favourite thing is making dens. He loves enclosing other things like wrapping presents and things, and listening to this lady just gave me this huge, my eyes just completely opened to a different world, and I could see what my child was looking at in a different way. So for example, the nan, since then, his nan had bought him a blanket and gave him a big cardboard box for one of his birthday presents, and he thought that was the best thing ever, because it's what's driving him. It's his repeated behaviour. He's learning through his schema, and now he's approaching 7, and his schema is still as strong now as it was when he was 1. He's still doing the same things, but obviously in a slightly different way. Now he's a bit older, but it will open your eyes. Schemas will open your eyes to your own children. What are they doing? Other people's children, and especially the ones in your setting, and allowing them to do things that you kept thinking, well, why are they always wrapping themselves in blankets? Well, have a little think about, is that repeated behaviour actually something you can work with and move their learning forward? Okay, how do they develop? We'll talk about how schemas develop in a minute. Where do they come from and why do they matter? Okay, a schema is often referred to as a pattern of play. It is used to describe the repeated behaviours of young children. There's lots of schema research, and this quote was one of the ones that sprung to mind when I was asked to do this presentation. And a child's hearts and minds and bodies are valued and precious. Young children must receive the respect and recognition they deserve as capable thinkers and learners in all aspects of their development. And again, it relates back to play and how important those lengthy play sessions are, where they're open-ended and the children just have that freedom to play with whatever they want to choose, whoever they choose to play with, and then that's when the magic really does start to happen. Here's just a few examples of the book that I created in my research and practice. So we took schema research to the next level. We used it as our driver last year. We were really interested in observing the children. We did lots of case studies. We found it more as a team. We became like the big schema team in school. And we just got really excited about children's learning, and we just took it to the next level and measured their children's levels of engagement. And we did obviously find that children were engaging more through noticing their schema and working with a child's schema. Okay, so schemas. From birth, children repeat their actions and behaviours. For example, grasping, lifting, sucking, mouthing, waving, and banging are all early schemas. Children have a natural urge to do the same thing again and again, whether it is throwing things, hiding things all over the house in bags, or emptying all the toys out of the toy box. This repetitive behaviour helps children to develop and deepen their understanding of concepts. Now, this is a really interesting one because you've always got that child who will empty the boxes of toys all over the carpet and then walk off and then do it again and do it again, and you go back and pick it all up. And if you look at what they're doing, it is probably their schema. So when practitioners then say to us, well, should we just let them do that, and should we let them have everything all over the place? This is why observations, when you observe children, if they are doing that, and if that is causing a problem in your setting, maybe for the other children who everything's all over the place, so they can't play with the blocks correctly, maybe because all the loose parts have just been scattered everywhere constantly, or the staff just really haven't got time to be picking up every single piece of loose part and putting it all back together every time they do it. You as a setting need to think of a more creative way of allowing those children to still do their schema, to still practice that again and again, but in a different way. Is someone getting rid of a load of balls from a ball pit, and you'd happily take them on and take them outside and get some big baskets and let them do it outside? You know, is there a way of thinking, oh, we got the big tough spot, we got the big tough tray. Is there resources that we can allow this to be happening in here? You know, or can we actually get the real washing and pretend they're doing the washing and putting it in the washing machine and then getting it in a basket and tipping it all out and then pegging it all up? You know, can you think of a more creative way that supports your setting? You know, because it isn't always ideal if children are just emptying all the toys out of all the boxes all the time. But have a look a bit deeper into it and think, what can we do here? This is the behaviour that's displaying. What can we do now to help this child and to let them still be happy creating this repeated behaviour? What can we do next? Okay. It's just something to think about now as we go along, and you will find that all schemas, there may be something that you actually think, oh, hang on, there's that person, he does that, or she does that, and he does that. Oh, that's a great idea to try and think of, we could change that in our setting, and that's the key to that. Okay, but it's about working with your practitioners and your setting and seeing what's the best for you. Okay, schema clusters. Some children have one very clear schema. Other children may have a number of schemas called clusters. Schemas are patterns of linked behaviours which the child can generalise and use in a whole variety of different situations. It is best to think of schemas as being a cluster of pieces which fit together. Okay, so going back to maybe thinking of a child in your setting that you think, oh, do you know what? I just really can't think of any schema, that any sort of behaviour they've been repeating. You know, and some children, it is really, really tough to find what their schema possibly could be, but they may be the ones who've got like a cluster of schemas, and nothing profoundly stands out. I was thinking the same as my eldest son. I said, oh, well, my youngest has definitely got an enclosure schema, and it just comes through in every part of him, indoors, outdoors, everywhere he is, he's enclosing. However, my eldest doesn't have a schema. And then looking back and really thinking about it, once you really get your head into schematic play, he kicked a ball from the minute he could walk. He was following the lines, he was jumping, he was kicking balls, and I do now think, looking back, that his schema was probably a trajectory schema, and he's still 100% into his football now, so potentially his schema is still there with him, and he's using it for his sport, for his fitness, anything with a ball and a line and I just really feel like now, looking back, he could have potentially had a trajectory schema which I could have used a bit more to develop his learning, because he's very busy outdoors, and I wish I'd known now, really. But you know, you learn, you grow up, you learn new things, and I'm always trying to learn something new and help the children develop and learn. So I just find that schemas are really, really interesting, and to find out a bit more about what those little brains are thinking. You know, you think sometimes, oh, they're just having a little wander around, but what are they really thinking? What is their next plan? They're making up a little plan in their head of what they're doing next, and it's fascinating to watch. Schemas are a direct link to how the young brain develops and works. By supporting and extending the schema in the provision and the language we use, materials, for example, construction, drawing and painting. We will talk a bit more in a minute about the different things that you can use and provide for the children to support their schemas in the setting. Through their content, such as stories and experiences, that we all offer through the foundation phase framework. So schemas aren't something new, they aren't something you need to be doing as well as. It's happening. You know, we've got beautiful settings and we allow children to play, and the foundation phase framework is at the heart of what we're doing, so that you should be seeing the children playing for lengthy times, and you will then observe their schemas and find out, it's just finding that little bit more, a little bit of magic from those children, that how we can help them a little bit more with their learning at their development stage. Okay. Children need time to develop their content of their schemas. This is why they need like long-term plans, as well as responding spontaneously when an obvious extension of a schema shows. Then the schema forms deep grooves in the brain and the learning lasts into adult life. Schemas link directly to how the young brain develops and grows. So as children repeat their actions, they make those important connections. Okay, so it's just allowing those children to be repeated. It's vitally important that the young children are given these opportunities to develop at this young stage of their life. You know, when they're not being asked to sit for long, lengthy times, for unnecessary periods of time. When they're born to be playing, they're at that age now where they just want to be exploring, being curious, finding out new things about the world, indoors and outdoors. Okay, so there's some great ideas. You can find out loads of things more like online, on handouts. There's lots of books and things that you can find out ways of supporting children, as well as what I say today to help you. Okay, it's really interesting as well that parents could be informed about it. I don't know about you, but I really love to know about how to develop my child and how I can support their learning, and give the parents a little window into their schema. It'd be really interesting because parents can support children by understanding the schemas and encouraging children to play and learn in a way that links to the children's schematic interests. Okay, because schemas are often seen when they're babies and young children, and then they're given the opportunity to lead their own play. So it'd be great to hear if parents could support you as well. Right, the skilled practitioner should be able to recognise that there's a distinct pattern of behaviour and that is meaningful, and then they can accommodate the opportunities for individual children. For example, children carrying all the bricks from one place to another in a bag, or the sand from the tray to the home corner, or pushing a doll around in a pram. These little hints are a hint of their schema, and if this is the behaviour that's being repeated, okay, it could be that they're transporting behaviour. It could be that they've got a transporting schema, and this is why it's crucial that your environment is set up to allow children to engage in their schemas. You know, have you got the wheeled items like the wheelbarrows and the prams? Are you allowing children to have free roam of the nursery with these items? Are you allowing them to pick out the beads from the loose parts, and then the bowl, which is from our washing up bowl in the home corner, and move them to the block play, which they've been doing all week in our setting, but they've loved it. These beads are like the most popular thing in our nursery at the moment. They are being used everywhere and we love it, and they seem to sort of stay together. You know, we do find beads here and there, but they're really popular. They're being transported, they're being enclosed, they're being counted, they're being poured, they're just everywhere. And these are just beads from an old game that we found, and then we took it apart and pulled all the beads out and kept the beads. So loose parts is just the most brilliant resource that I know some settings are a bit reluctant in putting out, because they can create you know, a bit of getting used to, a bit of mess, but do it. I said, if you haven't had the opportunity yet to use loose parts, please, please, please give it a go. It just gives the children those open-ended times to really think about what do they actually want to be doing with this resource. And they're being really creative with the ideas, working together, collaborating. Loose parts is definitely the way forward, and I'm sure, you know, your teacher advisor can give you loads of ideas for loose parts, or you could be looking up on the internet of how to use loose parts in the early years. They are fabulous. Stages of schemas. So the first stage, which some people class as level 1, would be the sensory motor stage. So sensory and the movement. So babies and young children learn through their actions, movements, and information they receive from their 5 senses: sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. These early sensory experiences and movements are vital to a child's development and learning. So this is a really, really early stage, allowing the children to still develop and still explore and getting that deeper learning until they move on to the level 2, the symbolic representation. So symbolic representation can be observed when children use one thing to stand for something else. For example, a child might use a feather to represent a bird. Symbolic representation is one of the highest levels of thinking and functioning. So you probably see this a lot in your settings, that they're pretending that something's something else. So when they start to do that, that's their next level. They've moved on to their next level, and it is, like I said, a high level of thinking. So we can support children's symbolic play by recognising that they're pretending to do something can help a child to express their feelings. So allowing the children to do this and giving them, again, lengthy times of play can support our children. They're beginning to make believe and pretend, and again, that's another thing to be fascinating to watch the children do that. The next stage, level 3, would be cause and effect. So when children apply their existing knowledge to a new situation, they do this by drawing on knowledge that they have already absorbed from their first-hand experiences. So children's knowledge doesn't usually come from when you say to them, oh, well, when you go to a park and you go up the steps and you go down the slide, you can go really fast. A child learns from actually going up the steps, going down the slide, and finding out that, yes, it was really fast. So always think first-hand experiences are the best learning experiences. You know, if you brought a picture of a tortoise to the group and you said, oh, this is a tortoise, this is a picture, this is what they do, is obviously going to be completely different to bringing a real tortoise to the group, showing them how it moves, you know, watching the children become really curious. It's going to be a much more memorable experience for them. And these first-hand experiences are vital for the children. And moving forward with the new curriculum, with the 4 purposes, you know, the best experiences for the children are real, and this is the way we're going with the 4 purposes. Okay, the next step with level 4 would be the abstract thought. So abstract thought is when children begin to be aware of their own knowledge and use language to describe events, objects and experiences. Okay, so when children start to remember information that has been given to them in the absence of their concrete clues. Okay, so this is obviously a very more advanced skill for the child to be able to do. So it would be then that time when you haven't actually got the real tortoise, you need to use the pictures and the information you're given. Are children starting to remember these things? Are they absorbing and adapting to a different type of learning? But that would be more for the older age of children, I would say, unless obviously they were interested in something like lions. And then you try your best to be as real as you can without the real lion in the setting. So lots and lots to think about as the children develop through their stages of schema. Children learn through play, through first-hand experiences, through repeated actions such as their schemas. Play coordinates all their learning together, and they repeat and consolidate things that they've learned during their play. So it's really, really important they're given time to play. And it helps them to understand and make sense of what they've been learning in ideas, feelings, and relationships. And it also helps children to realise what they know and understand and how to make connections. So play is a child's work. They need their time to be playing, to learn how to socialise with other children, to repeat things, to consolidate, and to have lots of fun. So observing schemas is really vital, because obviously the knowledge of schemas can help you to describe in more detailed ways in which the child is which way the child is learning and how to approach their learning. So you can use this knowledge to help understand your child's behaviour. And that's really important, because sometimes you can think, like I mentioned earlier, that they're tipping out everything just to annoy you, but obviously that's not the case. It's their way of learning. And when you're observing, it's really worth going back to this observation process. So describe what the child is doing. What do you see? What do you hear? What's going on? You know, get down to their level, sit on a little chair, sit on the floor, find out what they're doing, and quietly just find a space where you can really observe the children in their play. Start to analyse what you can see. What does it tell you? What does it mean? You know, what are they doing? What does it mean? Why are they doing this? And how can you then improve what they've been doing? What resource could you possibly add to the setting? Can you change your provisions slightly? What can the adults do to support these children in their learning, in their next steps? And what sort of communication could you support them with? Have a little think of when you're in your setting, this circle, always beneficial to go back to. The observation circle of describing what's happening, what does this tell you, and how are you going to improve it. Okay, so I'm going to talk through now all the different types of schemas that you may find in your setting whilst you're observing the children. You may just be observing, looking for schemas, or you may be observing for the foundation phase profile, or to try and find your children's interests. You may want to be doing it all as one thing. You make an observation and then you go back, look at it. What skills could you see from that? What schemas, what interests, and how are you going to then move your learning on? So there's loads of things you can get from lovely observations. But my first schema that I'm going to talk to you about is my favourite schema, my little boy's schema, which is the enclosing schema. So a child who's using the enclosing schema, maybe creating lots of putting things around them, enclosures. Maybe they are creating enclosures in the block play. Maybe they're making lots of dens or barricading themselves from the other children. Maybe they're lining them all up. Maybe they're creating enclosed spaces. So they're making a little space with their teddies around them or some pillows around them, and they're finding they're feeling secure in that little space. They might be interested in large cardboard boxes. You know, a real nice one to provide boxes, different sizes, shapes, and just see who goes in them, see what they do, see who's going to be hiding in them, see who tries to put the lid on top of themselves and tries to stay in there for a few minutes. Who wants to create tunnels with their boxes or find tunnels and spaces to hide in. We've had a child before that went hiding in the role play kitchen, and she was in the little cupboard in the role play kitchen. Well, the girls just couldn't believe it, and if you watched her in the rest of her play, then she definitely has an enclosing schema, and she is being in the role play in the cupboard. Obviously, we did try to discourage that she does that, because maybe we wouldn't be able to find her on other occasions, or you know, she might get stuck in there. But yeah, it was an interesting observation on that day. You know, lots of children may be fascinated by tents. You could bring a little tent in or a teepee, and who's going to be going in there and hiding away. It just always seems so much fun for children to be having tents, tunnels, dens. You know, are they enclosing objects? Are they interested in wrapping presents? Are they enclosing themselves in blankets, teddies? Every setting is different, and every setting has a different setup. So it'll be interesting to see if you can find some of those children who are enclosing themselves into different things. Now, there's ways then of using this schema to move your child's learning on. So we've had a group of children last year who were really into the enclosing schema. So we provided lots of equipment like blankets, pegs, stands, and we taught them how to build dens. So some of our family time sessions involved children making dens. You know, how do we actually use the pegs? How do we attach them to the side? How do we make that enclosure? And we supported the children, as you can see on this photograph here, to create their own dens. And then after lots of modelling and practice, the children would then, you know, choose to use these activities for themselves and create their own little dens, or they may create a little enclosure for their teddies and things, or we'd add boxes in. And it was great just to move that learning on that little bit more for the children. You know, you could do the same sort of thing outside, you know, in a forest school session, or just in your yard with the large loose parts. They're always a good idea to be using the large loose parts and materials outside. So a real exciting schema. It's got to be one of my favourites. Okay, transporting schema, a real easy one to spot in your setting. Who's that child who walks in and puts the baby in the pram and starts going all the way around and round your setting with the pram? Pushing babies in prams, finding any wheeled toy to push themselves along on or push somebody else along on. Who's the person going to the wheelbarrow? You know, stacking things in the wheelbarrow, pushing the wheelbarrow along. Transporting things, putting things in bags, putting the bag on their back and going around the nursery, collecting all your items, putting them all in baskets, moving them around. Dun dun dun. Sometimes we think, why are you moving all our things all around our setting? It's their schema. They're moving things because they've got that urge to repeat. And let's provide the children with these things to repeat. So if that's all they're doing is moving things around with prams, how about getting a trolley for them? You know, change it into shopping, bring the maths aspect in, get the little shopping till and the items, and then pretend to play shops. So they've got their schema, their interest, their urge, but they've also got the maths aspect linking to those trolleys. You could do the same in the outdoors with these, for example, all these things we got here with the apples and things. Collecting all the apples, counting the apples into the wheelbarrow, and then letting them move them around the outdoor area as freely as they want to do. And then with a few children doing this, others will copy, and they will be learning by waddling and watching what the other children are doing. There's lots of opportunities as well for children to be transporting sand, water, anything that is of interest to them. Loads and loads of ways of transporting outdoors. I would really encourage this outdoors. You know, it can get messy. You know, you can use those heavy items like logs and things like that. It can really, really, really be developed, especially in the outdoor area. You know, children can start to run when they're moving things. They get very, very excited. It may not be as safe to have the children running around with things like prams and things indoors, but you know, in all aspects of the learning, this can be a real great one, and it's nice and easy to develop other areas of learning with the transporting schema. There's loads of different ways that you can enhance it and loads of different ideas, but I would keep looking for things maybe on Pinterest. I've just mentioned the shopping and everything. You could provide the bags and the baskets and things for the children. You'll see on the video later that there's lots and lots of ideas that you can use to support your children with this exciting schema. Okay, orientation schema. Have you seen any children in your setting hanging upside down, looking through their legs? Maybe have they been turning objects upside down to view them in a different way? Is there a few children doing cartwheels, handstands? Are they enjoying rocking on the rocking horse, climbing the trees or the play equipment outside? Are they looking on, trying to find ladders, climbing up things, looking for a new view on life? Are they climbing, sliding, rolling, standing? Are they standing on objects to get to a higher position? Are they using your big loose parts outside to build towers, your block play to build those towers to get a bit higher? What are your children doing in your setting? I find this one a little bit harder to spot, but then when with discussions with some of the adults in my setting the other day, I realised, well, we've got our play equipment, and who are those children who go straight up to the play equipment and want to be on that bridge? They want to be on that height. They want, you know, they're the children who potentially could be showing that repeated action of an orientation schema. They're going on there. Who are the ones trying to climb the trees? Which children are building the blocks to get that height, or hanging upside down like this little boy is doing here? You know, when you get, you will get your favourite schemas, if you get as interested in it as I am, but there is opportunity to then find your new favourite one. So I think this is going to be one of my ones I'm going to start looking at for a little bit more. I'm wondering what we're going to do when we find these schemas and find these children who are doing this, to move that learning on that a little bit further, provided a few more opportunities. So that's orientation. Positioning schema. Okay, so here's a photograph of lots of little bits and pieces carefully positioned with little tiny lids of Play-Doh on top. We put loads and loads of loose parts in our Play-Doh for the children to explore and be really creative with. We also put loose parts on like an exploring table. We put loose parts in the block play. We put loose parts on our light box. We've got large loose parts outside, along with autumn collections of things and leaves, the little loose parts out there. Loose parts are fabulous for positioning. So children will naturally have the urge to place them in the positions they want to be placing them. They may be placing objects on their own bodies. They may be placing objects carefully in rows. Are children placing objects carefully in rows from forming queues and insisting on the others are in order with the other children? So are they bossing everyone around? Last year we had a little boy and he wanted to go on a train, and he decided we were all going to play trains, and he put every chair that he could find in one long line, and he made everyone else sit on each individual chair in their line. And this observation obviously provided me with information from him, his interests, trains. He goes on trains a lot with his nan and his mum. His schema, positioning, ordering, and he was a strong character. You know, he had the confidence to be telling and managing what all the other children are doing, and he gave us ideas. He gave the setting ideas, and to take that time to watch what he was doing led us on to opportunities then to develop his learning. For example, we decided ideally we would go and visit a train station and go and view the real trains. At the time we just couldn't organise 80 children or even that group to go at that present moment, but that would have been the ideal situation. But we did watch lots of videos and things on YouTube of the going on a train and the fast trains and all the different types of trains, and they were really interested. Then we went outside, and the children then made trains with loose parts outside, the big loose parts. And it moved on to they need a little ticket for when the ticket man comes around. So we went and made tickets, and it started developing their fine motor and writing. So it just kept going and going, and then we document it in our learning journey book, our class book. You know, there could be the opportunity where he draws trains and things if he really wants to, and share his experiences of his train journeys with the group. And it just brought so much life and meaningful play into our setting. And obviously this all came from his positioning schema, his interests, and it just shows how lovely from one observation how you can move the children forward in your setting. It's taking that time to observe and find the true meaning of what the children are doing. Okay, the connecting schema. Is there someone in your setting fascinated with joining things together? Fastening or tying things using ropes, string, tape, staples or glue? Is there someone connecting pieces of wood with nails? Are they linking or joining recycled materials at craft table, or fastening fabrics and scarves in role play? Or are they disconnecting, the children beginning to explore separating things, demolishing constructions, or taking toys apart? Okay, lots of the connecting schema can be found in a train track area. Lots of children connecting things or puzzles at this stage. You know, unless you've introduced your woodwork yet and your recycling stations with gluing and sticking and things, you'll probably be seeing the connecting schemas happening with the puzzles. Yeah, a really nice one. You know, lots of children get really engaged in creating their train tracks in nursery. Okay, the enveloping schema. Children exploring the enveloping schema will have an interest in enveloping and hiding themselves, and possibly hiding objects. They often show an interest in dressing up or wrapping themselves in blankets, as well as wrapping or concealing objects in fabric, paper or Play-Doh. Who are those children pushing all the little loose parts into Play-Doh and covering them all up, and then you've got to pull them all back apart? You know, have a little think of those ones. Who are the ones dressing up, putting hats on and blankets and things? Enveloping and containing may be linked to feelings of safety and warmth. Children may envelop themselves when they're feeling tired or upset, as a way to block out their surroundings. Okay, and I find that when I'm observing this one, it's quite difficult to make the decision if it's an enveloping schema or an enclosing schema, and they do seem to link quite closely together. And I think it's all around the feeling of being safe and warm and having something around you, to feel that security. Okay, other things I've written on here would be to paint all over their hands or a picture in one single colour. So they're covering things over, so you could even be seeing it in their drawing. You know those children who draw a lovely picture and then literally cover the whole thing in a thick black pen. You think, oh, it was a lovely picture. But actually, have a little look at other things they're playing with. What other behaviours can you see in the nursery? Is there a little bit more to it? And what can we do then to develop their learning a little bit further? Rotation schema. The rotation schema encompasses an interest in rolling, spinning, turning, and circles. This can include exploring objects that roll, exploring how you roll and turn your own body, as well as mark making in a circular motion. So have you seen those children in your setting that run around in circles and spin? Is there anything in your nursery that actually spins and you see them staying there for a few minutes just spinning it round and round and round and round and round and watching and watching and watching? Are they twisting things? Are they going around with the scarves and spinning them and twisting them in the air? Have a little look and observe your children. And we were talking as a team last year about this schema, and there's lots of children doing this, and we thought, well, what could we then do to develop their schema? So we thought about paint and the rolling and the different rollers and things in paint, the large loose parts, rolling the big wheels outside, and also maybe baking. If they're ready for baking, mixing, stirring, providing opportunities in the water and the sand for mixing. Yeah, a really, really nice one. A really, really exciting one again. Okay, a trajectory schema. So when you're observing children, you may see children enjoying jumping and throwing and running. You may see children that may create movement in lines with their bodies. They may be making marks in lines with paint, pens, paper. They may explore objects that move in straight lines. Okay, a really, really nice one to spot. Things that are traveling in lines. Okay, other schemas that you may spot. Transforming, an interest in changing materials. They may enjoy mixing sand and water together. They may enjoy drawing and painting their bodies. A really, really interesting one, that one, transforming. Disconnecting, I briefly mentioned it earlier with connecting, but when they join things together and take them apart. So some children do like just taking things apart, like nuts and bolts and things, putting them all together, taking them all apart, maybe making a necklace, and then taking it apart. So disconnecting and connecting can usually tend to go together, but some children may just be disconnecting things particularly. Core and radial, so are they starting from the middle and moving outwards? Are they drawing spiders, animals with horns? Are they drawing their fingers and eyelashes and suns? Do they put things in clay and flags and castles and create that like spidery type effect with things? Okay, that's a really, really one I haven't really spotted that much in my setting, but it's one I am going to be looking out for a little bit more now, to challenge the setting a little bit more. So yeah, there's the other three schemas. Okay, and this is just like an overview again, just to refresh now before we go on to the video, that is enclosures, transporting, orientation, positioning, transforming, rotation, trajectory, and enveloping. On the next slide, you will see some of these schemas. and it's basically a dialogue between me and another 2 members of staff. Just the type of dialogue that we have when we are in the setting. You know, what are we seeing? What are we going to do? How are we supporting our learners? How could we maybe get like a little FPP skill in this to assess just naturally whilst they're in their learning? Yeah, I've just worked with fantastic people, Rebecca and Kath, and they're both now just going to chat away all about their play observations.
So we've been observing some children this week in our nursery setting, and here I have Kath Horton-Shaw and Rebecca Oaten, and we're now just going to discuss a little bit about what we can see in the videos, you know, exactly what we can see, what is happening, how we'd analyse it, and maybe how we could improve the play in our nursery. So here is a child, we've noticed she's in the Play-Doh table, she's very engaged in her activities. She's carefully positioning her Play-Doh, totally in her own world, focused. But how do we think we could improve this, girls?
Well, first of all, I'm just really impressed with the amount of time that she spent at this activity, because if you look how long it takes her to just push out the one, she spent all that time doing placing them, positioning them,
and her fine motor
skills.
And she's taken that round circle from the loose parts. It's not even a cutter.
No.
She's made it into a cutter.
Yeah. So
And
she's got some pre-skills, she's got pre-knowledge here of using
and you can see the
type
child
of thing.
next to her has started to copy her play as well, and as you know, mimicking what she's doing.
So as the adult in here, I may go in, may do, not all the time, but I may go in now, say, oh, 1, 2, 3, and I could just count them and see if she would then mimic what I'm doing, maybe.
Or size, maybe give her the option of another cutter, a bigger size, and see if she uses size to order them as well.
Here, this is a similar activity. Okay, on this observation, the child is moving blocks from one place to another, stacking.
Yeah, gross motor skills.
Mm-hmm. Lots of positioning going on. Actually, Izzy's thinking about the position of where they're putting the logs. Again, is strengthening their muscles, gross motor. Again, you could tediously pop the counting in there if you felt like you wanted to.
And like carefully balancing them on top of each other.
You know, and if this child particularly finds it difficult to engage in a maths activity, you could tediously pop it in there, couldn't you?
Yeah. And talk about the size, the bigger ones, the smaller ones, heavier ones, lighter ones.
There's another child now that's become interested in it. They've worked as a team there, and they've been quite collaborative. So he's placed them, he's done the positioning, and she's doing
so the social element of play.
And then she was doing the transporting.
So here, another outdoor activity. This child, I've never seen a child actually post things through this thing. They just usually use it as a table or something to wheel along, but she's actually posting everything through the little hole. All the little natural materials are going through that hole. And it's about allowing the children to do things like this, you know, think for themselves, explore their own play.
It's given her ownership of it as well, isn't it?
Lots of children are starting to find an enclosure schema. We're noticing they like being in boxes, they like being in the tunnels, they like that safety net over them. Here's a child is enveloping the doll. She's covering the doll in blankets and then eventually transports the doll around it. She's good modelling for the other children.
Yeah.
Really nice to show them, you know, just looking after baby personal social skills.
With the enveloping and the video before with the enclosures, there's lots that we could do to sort of improve it and move it forward in terms of the resources that we make available for the children outside, like with the den building kits and things that we've used before, but just using it as sort of like deconstructed role play and giving them ownership and letting them move it forward.
Yeah, and finding the things they're interested in.
Collection, so they've collected all these loose parts from around the nursery.
It's really important you give the children loose parts in the nursery, and let them because they're so open-ended, what are they going to do with them? They've chosen to use them as water, really, haven't they, here? But the next cohort could do something completely different with it. So how could we move this one forward?
The counting aspect of it.
Yeah, and try different loose parts, I think, and see what they do with that, give them a bit more of an idea. Here's a trajectory schema, potentially. These children seem to have been found an interest in the movement of the balls going down, watching the lines. Lots of fun, repeat and repeat, and give them different opportunities. This is a different way of doing the same thing, but maybe with water.
And I've seen it this week in the sand as well. They've moved the pipes to the sand area and
they've done that off their own
sand.
backs.
Yeah,
that's nice.
It's about them getting engaged in their learning. How are you going to engage them? Is there enough activities out? Is there different ways of playing in the same, with using their same schematic play but in a different way?
It's nice how they're using the water to push it down.
Using the force of the water. And they don't need to know what they're doing. It's just exploring and finding cause and effect in what they're doing. And again, they are working together. They're sort of taking in turns.
Aren't they?
They're taking in turns. There may be a bit of speech here and there just to cooperate.
And having access to that large water play outside where you couldn't do that inside because of the mess, whereas outside
and there's nobody telling them to don't get the water on the floor, don't do this, don't do that. They're just doing it. So here a child's moving sand from the sand pit into the wheelbarrow, and lots of teaching assistants may say, oh, keep the sand in the sand pit. But why? Look how engaged this child is in this activity, transporting the sand.
It's really physical what he's doing as well, isn't it?
Skill.
What about making that sand wet sand? That would be good, wouldn't it? Just to...
I like that he's using like different resources to move it as well. He's not exclusively using one thing. He's looking at how the different resources impact that transportation.
Yeah, problem solving. What's the quickest way to get the most sand in this wheelbarrow? You know, and then if we know he's interested in the wheelbarrow and the transporting, what other resources are we going to give him?
Where's he going?
Yeah, what's his plan? Giving him just a chance to think, giving him the time as
well.
He's
just repositioned so he can get more sand.
And he's, no one's going to stop him. He's given plenty of lengthy time to practice his schematic play over and over again. It's repeated, repeat. All the process of learning through play. But have you got these type of resources in your environment that allow children to think through their problems? It's always analysing your environment.
Oh, some water.
Oh, nice.
This is the controversial one. Do you allow children to mix water and sand for a transformation schema? Lots of children could be interested in transforming materials.
I love how they're working collaboratively, like the ones putting the water in, the other ones sort of mixing it up to see what happens.
Yeah, and this is always an engaging activity. Even if you haven't got the schema that wants to mix, everyone loves to put water with sand and mix it and feel it. And
the same with cooking, so they can do the same, take it on further, baking.
Definitely take it on and ask, try and get the language then with the cooking and the baking. And think of other materials like your mud kitchen, the mud and water, making your mud pies, similar thing. But I know it can be quite sensory as well. I know in a minute, I think some of the little girls and boys put their hands in. And it's that change of texture that some children don't like it, do they? The wet and the gloopy feel.
Yeah, quite tentative at first.
But it's another learning experience for them. And allowing them the freedom to do it. Our settings given the children the freedom to explore things like this. you know, the sand will dry out, the sand can go back in the sandpit, and it's fine.
And they're spending a long time at these activities, aren't they?
Yeah. And I think the outdoor environment as well, you need to change your equipment as and when the children need it changed. Like, don't constantly change it, but don't always have the same thing.
And like, there was no adults stepping in then to direct it. They were just going on with it themselves.
So having this is an indoor observation of mark making. This little girl's going round and round and round. Possibly a rotational schema, or she's just enjoying going round and round. I think we'll have to have a few more observations to see if she is enjoying that, and it is repeated.
But given the opportunity to have free access to all those mark making instruments with the rotation.
Yeah. You know, and we will be having a look now, seeing if he is going back to this every day, and if he is, what will we do, and how will we support him with his next step of his learning. And as a rotational schema, watching that circle go around, how is it moving, how are they making it move, how can they make it move faster. You know, they don't need us to say that at this point, they're just exploring, but it could be questions you could ask, couldn't it, to try and...
Oh, the boxes in the sand.
Yeah, the boxes were in the big loose parts area. A little girl moved the box to the sand, and then it looks like all the boys are deciding to fill the box with sand. So it's enveloping the sand in a box. They seem to be enjoying it. Again, it's a bit like the physical side of it, like you mentioned earlier, Beck.
It is really physical what they're doing in the sandpit, isn't it?
And it's just a simple activity. It's just a box.
Yeah.
But they're getting a lot of focus, and they're engaged.
It's trying really hard to close it up properly, isn't it?
Yeah, and a problem solve.
Yeah.
How can we actually get it closed? And there he is. He's in it now. I think he's on the beach. You know, and it's allowing the children time.
Yeah, and
just
like,
give them time to do
resources
this.
like that, like the box. They're just so open-ended, aren't they?
Yeah, and they could be mark making on it, hiding in it, making it more into a big den. Lots of lovely learning through water play, filling and emptying, watching how the movement of water and problem solving. And it's just ideas again for lots of things you can be using outdoors.
We've got those funnels inside as well, but they seem to play with them better when they're outside, when they've got more water.
Yeah.
Some lovely play on there. Really.
As a setting, you may want to decide how to capture your magic moments. Are you going to do the post-it note brief observations? Are you going to write reams of learning stories? Are you going to create a narrative account with photographs and possibly videos? Are you going to focus in on one child and do a lengthy observation throughout the day, noting how engaged he or she is on different tasks? I think it's worth just chatting with your setting and how you're going to capture those magic moments. Here's the two pictures of ways we captured through our Play Matters observation book and photographical evidence of the four purposes through our learning and our environment. These are two photographs of two of the pages in our Play Matters book. You don't really need to be reading exactly what it says in there, but it is just our notes on exactly what we're seeing. We took a few photographs of the little journey on their play. So one's a home for the bears, another one would have been picnics. We've noted schemas when we see them. We've noted skills. For example, this little girl here, she's turning all the pages in the book and pretending to read a story. Just little things that we've captured, our little precious magic moments that help us plan and help us move learning forward. you know, all these have come into our planning. If it's not our planning as a family time, it is our planning of our enhanced provision.
Okay, so this wouldn't happen without the environment being right. So you really need to carefully consider your environment and how you plan for your resources, your continuous provision and your enhanced provision around your environment. So how can we enhance an early years environment to support schematic play? Now already you may have some ideas. Looking at the video, that'll give you some ideas. The photographs shown throughout the presentation, that will give you some ideas. You know, have a think of the schemas that you're spotting in your nursery, and then enhance those areas using resources to support those schemas. You'll find more ideas online, as well as what we've seen today. So the great early years environments are creative, engaging and adaptable enough to meet the needs of all learners. Reflecting, reviewing and assessing the environment is important if you want to maintain and improve the quality of your provision. Through observation, practitioners can adapt indoor and outdoor spaces to meet learners' needs and create curiosity. Play matters. For purposeful play, the environment needs to be planned for. Resources need to be open-ended, and the adults need to model, encourage and challenge. Consider waiting to be invited. So that's another crucial thing. When the children are playing, you know, the adult is there to be a role model, encourage and challenge, but only intervene as and when you feel it's the right time. A child's well-being should be at the heart of your setting to allow children to feel secure and ready to learn. So in your environment, is there nice cozy spaces? Is there a time when they get something to eat? Are they available, you know, do they know where the toilets are? Do they feel safe and secure? So until, obviously, you know, till children feel safe and secure and happy, that's when they truly will find the confidence to be playing and interacting with the environment. So if you're wondering why maybe a child is not engaging in things, and you know, just maybe they just need that extra bit of time to settle, and how will you help with their well-being?
Identifying schemas, observing children in the learning environment, and what might you see? So take some time to think about the children in your setting. What have you noticed? Are you beginning to identify any schemas? If you make notes before you start observing on children, you may consider having some sort of schematic play, or just go into your setting and start observing some play and see what you find. Make notes, videos, photographs, post-its. You decide as your setting how you will organise your observations, and we can't wait to hear a little bit about how you get on. So have a think about where you are now in your observation process, observing and assessing schematic play. Just questions to think about before you go and do your observation. Are the children making choices and decisions about what they play with? Are children concentrating on their interests, and are they deeply involved? Are children practicing and applying what they already know? Are they developing ideas that they can try out? Are they flexible spaces indoors and outdoors that children can use for their own purposes? Are there resources that children can jump on or over, kick a ball through, balance on, climb on, and get into and under? Are there resources and natural materials for children to handle, transport freely, and continuously available? Are adults involved, interested, and observing schematic play? Do observations inform action and planning? Okay, so just a little bit of a reflection now before you move on back into your settings, considering a few tweaks and a few changes possibly to how you observe, what you observe, and maybe thinking about your environment. So what do the nursery team say about schemas? So obviously I've worked really closely with my fantastic team of nursery practitioners, and I did say to them, if you had any advice or a bit of encouragement for some people who might be developing their thought of training with schemas, or they're completely new to schemas, what would you say about our journey? Rebecca said, observing and recognising schemas gives us the opportunity to make their learning meaningful. And Hazel said, I was surprised how easy it is to spot schematic play, and I enjoy researching what resources to use to support our learners. Kath said, schematic play gives adults a window into a child's imagination, and it shows us how the children is learning and developing. And I said, the children who find it hard to concentrate are able to engage for longer if we recognise their pattern of play and build on their interests. These are the books that we used in our setting when we developed our knowledge of schemas and observation. The yellow one, Schemas, a Practical Handbook, definitely a must read or a purchase. It really came in handy, really colourful, really simple to use, lots of ideas, lists and lists of resources that you can use to enhance your areas. So really, really great books here. And that's just it from me. A big, big thank you. Thank you for listening. I hope it was beneficial. I hope you're going to learn something, and I just really hope that your children are going to benefit from this observation training. Have lots and lots of fun, enjoy, and I'm here to help if you need anything else. Thank you.